back at Infowarrior with Jason Bermas, and Webster Tarpley has been gracious enough to hold over for another 20 minutes past this hour. We're going to be taking calls 888-201-2244 or 512-646-1776. The lines are open for Webster Tarpley. Anything you want to ask him about this current administration or overall is on the table. Webster, in this short segment, why don't you just sum up how awful this legislation is and how far you think it's going to go? Do you really think that the two evils being opposed to each other are going to stop this in the Senate? Or do you see some kind of a version of this bill being passed in the Senate and this is just our inevitable future?
In other words, I'm dreaming of gridlock. Both of these parties are absolutely bankrupt. They're politically, morally, programmatically bankrupt. The Democrats want to kill you through a board, and the Republicans want to kill you with a health savings account. Your health savings account will have $3,000 in it. At that point, you'll be on your own. You'll be looking at the world. The whole risk will be shifted to you. You'll have just enough money, maybe if you're lucky, to pay for your cancer diagnosis, and then there's nothing left in your health savings account. That's the demagogic Republican solution. But for right now, I would say gridlock, because anything designed by Obama is going to be no good. We don't need this fascist cartel. We don't want Medicare looted, and we don't need anybody seizing control of the entire system in this overarching way, which Obama is proposing. A lot of it's going to depend on leftists. I would talk to people now. People who wanted single payer, Obama sold you out at the very beginning, before he even started this. So he had to pay lip service to it, but he was never going to do anything about it. 2/3 of the Democratic Party wants single payer. It would have been normal for Obama to go into this saying, I demand single payer, and then the compromise would have been the public plan. But no, he's got to say, I'm dumping single payer, thereby dumping 2/3 of his own base, and saying, I'm for the public plan. And as the Washington papers were saying already a week or 10 days ago, what he's going to do is talk up the public plan and then throw it under the bus to say, I'm going to do this for a bipartisan deal with Grassley and Enzi in the Senate Finance Committee. So the big question now is leftists. The Afghan war is being escalated. 75 U.S. and NATO dead during July. Very high casualties this month. Thousands of Afghans dying. We just had a bomb at NATO headquarters in Kabul. This is Obama's Iraq, Obama's Vietnam. So it was just 4 years ago that Cindy Sheehan went to Crawford, Texas, to get in the face of Bush in the first year of his second term. And now we got Obama going to Martha's Vineyard, and the big question is whether the peace movement will be able to mount anything to go and visit Obama, because now we've got an even worse war. The Afghan war is even more, it's just hopelessly lost, even beyond Iraq, and he's determined to escalate this. We got McChrystal, the torturer, who's running it. He's going to do a Soviet strategy of trying to hold the cities and giving up the countryside. That's going to be a sure loser. So we got Obama has betrayed his base on the Afghan war and Iraq war issues, and he's also betrayed them now on what they want for health care reform. I can't imagine what people are waiting for inside the Democratic Party and elsewhere to mount a protest movement against this. In other words, it's time for people to make their voices heard also from that corner of things, right? You've seen what some teabaggers can do in the town meetings. That's good. They've done a public service. But how about all those leftists? There were 1,700 candlelight vigils for Cindy Sheehan with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, much more than these Tea Party things. They've got to pull themselves together and come back to life.
Well, let's talk about that on the other side. Let's talk about the Afghanistan and Iraq conflicts. It's the Infowarrior with Jason Bermas. We're with Webster Tarpley, 888-201-2244. All right, folks, we are back. It's the Infowarrior with Jason Bermas, streaming live right now over at Infowars.com and, of course, on PrisonPlanet.tv. We're joined by Webster Tarpley. And right now, we discussed the health care plan, cap and trade a little bit. If we have some time in the next segment, maybe we'll discuss that. But I really want to talk about this Afghanistan and Iraq conflict. Now, with Iraq, the public now thinks the Iraq war is over. We're getting our troops out there because that's the propaganda machine. They're putting it out there. No, we've redistributed forces into Afghanistan. Now, this is off of Reuters, and apparently they're letting people post blogs that are approved there. And this one's called "Who is Funding the Afghan Taliban? You Don't Want to Know." And basically it's saying, the United States is funding its own enemy. Let me just read you an excerpt. Virtually every major project includes a healthy cut for the insurgents. Call it protection money, call it extortion, or, as the Taliban themselves prefer to term it, spoils of war. The fact remains that international donors, primarily the United States, are to a large extent financing their own enemy. And they have been before 9/11, and folks, they've been doing it after 9/11 as well. I want to get your take on these wars, and I want to get your take on these new revelations by Sibel Edmonds, where she makes the claim that Osama bin Laden and the Taliban had intimate relations with U.S. intelligence all the way up to 9/11, Webster.
Let's start with Afghanistan and the Taliban, right? The purpose of this entire thing is to drive a wedge into the heart of the Eurasian heartland. It's more or less the place where India, China, Russia, the three decisive countries for the human future, come together, and you drive a wedge right in there. So, for example, if you wanted to build an Indo-European railway, a railway from New Delhi to Berlin and Paris, you can't, because it's got to go through the Khyber Pass and then across Afghanistan. So with the U.S. sitting there and fomenting these wars, you can't do that. Similarly, Pakistan is the other big target. Right? The goal there is to destroy the national unity of Pakistan, to balkanize them into what Brzezinski calls mini-states and micro-states. There would be 4 or 5, right? You know the list. Punjab, Sindh, Pashtunistan, Balochistan, Waziristan, or tribal areas, whatever you want to call that. And that would mean you can't build an oil pipeline from Iran into China, so the Chinese would guarantee their oil needs with an overland pipeline, more or less immune to the interference and harassment of the Anglo-American naval supremacy, especially over there in the Straits of Malacca between Malaya and the Indonesian islands, Malaysia and Indonesia. So the role of the Taliban in this is very clear. In my book, 9/11 Synthetic Terror Made in USA, I quote all kinds of newspaper stories. The Bush administration, Bush the younger now, gave $50 million to the Taliban regime 6 months before 9/11. It is a terrorist army of the Anglo-Americans in the same way that those Tamil Tigers were until they were sent to their eternal reward by the Sri Lankan government.
And they gave them that money under the guise of farm aid. It's always aid, Webster. They never say, "Hey, we're going to be funding an insurgency."
The point is that the Taliban are essential to break up Pakistan, because these are Pashtuns. This is this group, right? The Pashtun people, the Northwest Frontier people in Pakistan. So the idea is that if you've got them going, then they become one of the groups that's going to split up Pakistan. Another group that's paid by the U.S. is this Jundallah, which is the Balochistan Liberation Front. Then we have the Arabistan. Well, now we're over into Iran, so we've jumped. But the general idea for these places is secessionism. The Anglo-Americans want everybody to secede, create microstates and mini-states. That's the New World Order, because the IMF and the central banks will be floating above. The nation state is destroyed, and you got a bunch of impotent petty states all squabbling, some of them directly owned by, Blackwater or J.P. Morgan or ExxonMobil or whoever it is.
Final segment with Webster Tarpley after this. It's the Infowarrior with Jason Bermas, PrisonPlanet.com.